The last 2 years of our lives, we have been spent reading the Moro arc, the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc. And on this video, first of all, Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate it. But on this video, we got a special Christmas gift for all of you. We're going to do a roundtable discussion talking about the entire Moro arc in detail, going over the pros and cons, what we liked, what we didn't like, and just kind of having a discussion about the entire arc as a whole. That started in chapter 42, I think it was, if I remember correctly, and it ended in chapter 66. Well, the first half of 6-7, but whatever. Anyways, let me introduce the panel here that's with me right now. I am, of course, it's Geekdom, but you should know that because you're on my video, right? It has my name right there underneath it, but Danny. And first, I want to introduce somebody who I have brought on the channel to talk about the manga a few times in the past. First of all, it's Oppai Senpai. What's up, man?
What's good, brother? Thanks for having me back. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes, it's a good time of year, bro, except if you're a YouTuber. Anyways, all right, and joining me as well, he hasn't been on the channel in a few years, but he is back, and I'm happy to have him here, somebody who's very familiar with manga, especially Dragon Ball manga. Please welcome back to Geekdom 101, Unrelent Gaming, a.k.a. Alex.
What's going on, man? Thank you so much for having me, and happy holidays, guys. We have a lot to talk about. It's going to be fun.
It'll be a good time, bro. And then also joining me, somebody who is a kind of a smart dude when it comes to this stuff. I like listening to him and picking his brain on things. I'm putting you over pretty good, bro. Please welcome back, because he was here once before. Emish is here.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Glad to be back. It's going to be fun with having this specific roundtable because it's been a long time since I've had a roundtable where I could talk to other Dragon Ball content creators about the same arc to see where we stand on specific things. So happy holidays and let's do it.
Well, it's funny because during this arc, I was doing a lot of collabs with Oppai Senpai, and then you and Alex were doing your collabs, and that was fun. Like, y'all were doing your thing, we were doing our thing, but I couldn't even get my old crew because a lot of people who I used to do this with don't even cover the manga anymore, like Quaman and Black and Fist. I mean, he's AWOL. Like, these guys just wait for the manga to end, and then they read it all in marathon or whatever. But we were kind of one of the few people on YouTube that were just always talking about the manga. So that's why I picked you guys, and I think it'd be a good discussion. So what I want to do, right, is I want to start by going back to the beginning, okay? I wanted to, and the way it's going to work is I'm going to ask, I'll just ask you guys questions as we go along, your thoughts. I want to go back to the beginning of this arc, okay? Looking back on it now, not back then we were reading it for the first time. Looking back on it now, Moro, as a character, first and foremost, what do you think now looking back on Moro's backstory as far as his beef with the Kais and, the whole revelation of Majin Buu that was teased way back at the beginning of this arc, and the early interactions with Moro with his magical abilities? He can turn off transformations and things of that nature. What do you think now looking back? Do you think, because we were all kind of excited, do you think that stuff still holds up? I'm going to start with Emish here, and then we're going to go around.
Yeah, so first and foremost, when we got his design reveal, like the character design reveal, we were like, okay, he looks different. And by different, I mean, like, if you compare him to some of the previous baddies that we had, just in Dragon Ball Super, you had Beerus, and his design, it's simple, but it's effective, right? It's not like over the top. And then after that, you have Frieza. And it's like we've seen Frieza plenty of times before. After that, you have Hit from the Universe 6 arc, generic, bald, Piccolo face kind of design. After that, then you go into like the Goku Black and Zamasu arc. Now, Zamasu is just a Kaioshin, so there's really not much complication or something different there, other than the fact that he's green. And then you have Goku Black, who's just basically Goku. And then you go into the Tournament of Power, and that's when a lot of new characters were revealed. But no one really ever stood out outside of like maybe Keto Pesla from Universe. I forgot what universe he was from. Maybe like Universe 3 or something like that.
Right.
And there were a few characters that stood out, but a lot of people were focused obviously on Goku and Jiren. And then you have Toppo, who cares about Toppo? No God of Destruction form in the manga for Toppo, so who cares? You have Dispo again, just looks like Beerus. So a lot of characters, it didn't really hit you, And then you get to the Moro arc, and it's like, holy crap, this guy looks like a Sith, right? Like Darth Moro, you have all this stuff going on. The beef with the Kaioshins was interesting because it kind of expanded on something that we haven't seen in a long time. The last time we had beef with Kaioshins was like during the Buu era, right?
Right.
At the top of my head, at least, right? So after that, you start to ask yourself, okay, well, what can this guy, what can he do? Okay, he has magic. Yeah, but is magic really something worthy of even trying to sell to a fan base when you have things like Ultra Instinct and power that surpasses gods of destruction? How is this character going to, outshine or outsell Broly and Jiren? And just the concept of Ultra Instinct Goku. And then you fast forward to everything that's happened. We got the involvement of Agent Maris, who we found out over time who was an angel ultimately. So there was a lot happening. And Moro, I think, even though his abilities weren't something that's crazy or outlandishly new, it was effective in the sense because he was a different character. His dialogue, the way he speaks to you, the way he interacts with Goku and Vegeta, at least during most of the arc, was very influential when it came to kind of saying, okay, this guy feels like a bad guy. He doesn't feel like someone that could be reasoned with. He's smart. He's tactical. He's been alive for millions of years, right? So this guy has insane amount of knowledge. He can absorb your energy passively. There was just so much going for him. And then we saw him fight Blue Goku and Vegeta. And over time, we found out that just those two in their blue forms can take him out. But he just had so much going for him that, in addition to his magic, he was also a very capable fighter. They couldn't really finish him off because he always found a way to get out of there. So I think in comparison to, the other oppositions that we've gotten in Dragon Ball Super, including Broly, because I didn't mention him, but again, he's just another Saiyan, so who really cares? You know what I'm saying? Moro stuck out the most. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed the Moro arc just because of how difficult he was to deal with. And just the overall, his appearance, his presence, just it screamed, evil. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's been a long time since we had someone that evil, because when Goku first felt his chi, it gave us Cell vibes again. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't necessarily just like
he was
Cell.
freaking out too. Remember, he was whoa, this is scaring me even.
So his introduction into, the Dragon Ball Super series or manga was very positive. And I think, sky was the limit at that point because he had no potential cap. There was just so much going for him. And he almost killed Goku and Vegeta twice, right? So there was just a lot going for him. And then he got, younger and younger and younger and younger. He had a lot. He actually utilized weaker warriors, the prisoners, the Galactic Patrol prisoners. He utilized them by making them stronger to deal with Goku and Vegeta. Maris came in to swoop in, and then we got the interaction between Majin Buu, who remembered Moro, and then they fought each other, and then there was so much happening in this arc. And I think Moro himself, I think this is probably a lot of people's favorite arc up until the ending, which we've discussed on your channel before. But yeah, I think very positive introduction to the series for sure.
Okay, no, I see where you're coming from. We're going to talk about Mirrors here shortly, but I wanted to ask Opie, what do you think about what Emish said, the early arc, the introduction of Moro? Was he effective to you? Did he stand out as being? Because I agree with Emish, he was definitely different than Jiren and Goku Black. He, and obviously when it comes to goats, if you study the occult and things like that, which Alex and I have had conversations about in the past, about Baphomet and the evil goat god, and there's a lot of very creepy occult symbolism here. In fact, you did a video on it once, Opie, way back.
Yeah.
So what do you think, bro? What do you think about Moro now that the arc is over, the early era? Does it still hold up for you?
I think they dropped the ball towards the end. At first, when they introduced him, I was super excited. Hell yeah. They're essentially creating Baphomet, but in Dragon Ball. And they did have a lot of the same elements, such as he's a cult leader. And the people who follow him, it's almost in a way they're in a cult. Not exactly, because there's no religious beliefs, but he is the alpha. He does have a following. He is pure evil. He is essentially the representation of the devil himself. And in terms of how he has no mercy. So he is evil in that sense. But towards the end, he kind of felt like this jabroni in a way, this person who was willing to embarrass himself in front of everybody, which is really not the Baphomet type of way. Yeah, he plays dirty, but when he was begging Goku to spare him, that's just no. That kind of threw me off.
He's a slime ball. No, that's what I like about him. He's a slime ball. He's a cowardly heel, as we would say in the wrestling business that I'm not in, but somebody in this call is in.
What also got me excited?
He is. Yeah.
What also got me excited is the possibility of him being another offworlder. Now, if you don't know what an offworlder is, That it's a term that comes from Dragon Ball Fusions, but essentially an Offworlder is a very specialized group of races like the Angels, Beerus, the Demon Realm, right? People come from the Demon Realm, even the Majins. So like Majin Buu as an example.
Right.
So the fact that he has control over magic, that got me excited that perhaps they're going to go deeper into the Offworlders and that unknown territory when it comes to hitting Dragon Ball lore. But they didn't really explore that. They only told us as far as, well, we know he comes from the first time that we hear about him is 10 million years before age. But that's not when he was born. That's just, he was defeated 5 million years before Bibidi brought Kid Buu or Majin Buu. So there was
we really, I was just saying, we really don't know anything about like his birth because they never told us. I mean, remember how there was all kinds of theories about him being a god of destruction or somebody who had beef with Zeno? We didn't get any of that information.
And besides the Galactic Patrol, he was the first character that was actually utilizing the language of the Galactic Patrol, which might not even be a Galactic Patrol language. It could just be an ancient language that comes from millions of years from the past. We've never seen that besides the Galactic Patrol use that type of language, which he has on his belt. So that got me excited that we're going to get to see more hidden lore from like millions of years ago. And then they didn't explore that at all. And that disappointed me.
Yeah. All right. Well, Alex, man, it's been a couple years, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on Moro's introduction. You know, did you think he would be a threat? You know, basically just passing the question along to you that Emish and Opie had already answered.
Right. So I think from the beginning to see how Toyo took inspiration from the West in creating like a demon-like entity for Goku and Vegeta to combat, it reminded me so much of like Emish said, Baphomet, Payman. I had you know, just instant thoughts of like, you know, just satanic worship and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, well, in terms of design, he stands out. And I think his approach was very much needed because we had Jiren and Broly who focused more on the premise of power and strength and the utilization of getting stronger to fight this guy, or at least to them. But when you had Moro basically, you know, be introduced, he kind of introduced a different tactical element to where he didn't really rely on power necessarily, because it was at that point where we got to see how he was able to manipulate, you know, Vegeta in throwing him around using telekinesis, and he was able to manipulate the planet's energy and the core of the planet and shielding himself by using that energy. So, you know, the way he fought them, I think, was really unique, other than having to just be your typical powerhouse. And I liked his goals. I think his goals were really heavily influenced by the sense of like, you don't have someone that wants to rule the universe. You don't have someone that wants to just become the strongest. You have someone that is desperately craving to have their youth be restored and have their magic be restored for the sole purpose of, as he told Cranberry, he despised the concept of peace. And he even told Cranberry on the way to New Planet Namek that the universe was booming with life, you know, since his, you know, original time in having to battle the Daikaio. So he felt very disgusted by, you know, seeing how life was just blossoming throughout the universe. So, you know, to see that, you know, kind of move its way through as we went towards the middle and ultimately towards the end of the arc, I think that it was really nice to see Majin Buu be used for once, because I did not like the way they used him in Super at all. I felt as if Majin Buu was always Majin Buu, like I think when looking at his potential and what he can provide, you know, even as a supportive character, I think he's very useful. And I think that every character wants to feel used, because at least then you have some sort of value to add. So I love the fact that, you know, in this fight, you had Buu use magic against another magic wielder. So that was really cool. And the emphasis on the Daikaio being within him, and then having those regressed memories come about to where Majin Buu knew who Moro was. So that was really, really good. It's a little disappointing to see him fall asleep again, because I really wanted to see what he could have added or contributed, you know, along with Gohan and Piccolo and the androids when they battled Sagambo and etc. But I from the early portions of this arc, I think they really made use of Moro in kind of telling his story and where he wanted to go, especially when he started to regress in age and he started to get younger and younger. We went from Old Man Moro to Gold Team Moro to Prime Moro, and then later Moro 7-3. I think that the way they kind of handled him was unique, but I just felt as though in time they went with this narrative from, you know, allowing this being to be more or less focused on magic and being able to devour his opponent the way he wants to, or the way he's normally going about in doing so. He went from that into more or less the power route when he absorbed 7-3, and he became more of a tank, I would say. So from the beginning, I just really enjoyed the way they went with the narrative, especially with the fact that, again, one of the biggest mistakes I think that they could have written in for his character was he didn't make sure that Goku and Vegeta were dead when he took their power to, just get a little younger as he did on New Planet Namek. But instead, he told Cranberry, I'm just going to let them die. They're going to die on their own accord. They're no longer a threat. Let's just go after the Dragon Balls. And that was another thing that I really enjoyed from his character, is the fact that, once again, we had someone that was after the Dragon Balls. And it wasn't the fact that he was after the Dragon Balls because he wanted immortality or, again, to rule the universe. He just wanted to, be young again. So,
like Piccolo.
Yeah, exactly. So when that happened and he murdered Cranberry to get that wish, I think it was very sinister, and it was very, I think, narratively written well, especially with who he was as a character, representing that of a devil, satanic like character. So I think the early portions, when looking at, if you want to divide this arc from beginning, middle, and to end, the beginning aspect of this entire arc was done very, very well. And I love, again, the utilization, as Emish said, the beef with the Kais, seeing how, although you can argue and say that Super Saiyan Blue at its peak with Goku and Vegeta could have been stronger than Moro in terms of pure strength, he still fought them in a different way, to where Goku was the first one to notice that even as Vegeta fought him, when he looked at his hands and he looked at the environment around him, he noticed that something was off. And that was the fact that subconsciously he was taking their power without them even knowing. And even when he confessed to Vegeta, like, you fool, I had this, plan the entire time, like, you never stood a chance against me. So, to see the way they wrote him in the beginning was, I think, very well done.
Okay, and I agree. And then we all kind of agree, we've done videos on this, that when he swallowed 7-3, it kind of began the decline of how interesting he was as a character. Now, I want to talk about Mirrors real quick. So, Mirrors was introduced, and there was speculation about who he was. Some thought that he was actually a villain the entire time. Turns out he was an angel, and it was kind of weird because we had been conditioned to believe there's only 12 angels, one per universe, but there's actually more angels out there, which I think this was a good move because now we're expanding the universe. One thing that I think Toyo Toro did do, because I think we were criticizing it early on because, it's a Universe 7 again. Like, why are there so many problems in Universe 7? Let's go to Universe 6 or 11. Let's go somewhere else. But I think that introducing Mirrors and showing that there are other angels that are not quite tippy top tier angels proves two things. Number one, Grand Priest likes to fuck. And number two, that there are other angels that could at some point either replace Whis and Vados, or they might make other universes. There's all kinds of possibilities. But here's my question to y'all, because I've seen the fandom debate about this. When Mirrors vanished, right? Did you think that did you think that they gave us enough time with Mirrors for us as an audience to care? Like, when he disappeared and his friendship with Goku in the manga. Now, when they do the anime version, they might fix this, but in the manga, do you think that they really did a good job in having us care about Mirrors to where when he vanished, it actually meant something? And, Goku, the connection with him and Goku actually mattered? Or do you think they just didn't do that properly? This time I'm going to start with Alex, and then we're going to go around. So what do you think about this?
So this is an interesting topic only because a lot of people said, well, he has no connection to Goku. Why should anyone care? I mean, they just met, right? But people tend to forget, right? And this is an interesting point. People tend to kind of lambast that and say, oh, it was stupid. But let's not forget, in Dragon Ball Z, Gohan just met Android 16, right?
True.
And when 16 had told Gohan, and mind you, they never had a conversation. They never trained. They met right there. If you can argue and say Gohan's first interaction to speaking with 16 was when his head was on the floor, right? So they had no connection other than 16 reminding Gohan about the value of life and preserving peace, right? Letting him know, hey, you got this, kid. You can do it. Just break through and just protect us all, whatever. So it was kind of like the same message, except here you had Goku actually spend time with him. And what I really enjoyed about this arc in particular was the emphasis on the neutrality of the angels, but also seeing how angels do have a choice in either having a bias towards good or evil, in which Maris had, willingly chose to side with the Galactic Patrol because the Grand Priest had deliberately put him in Universe 7 to learn about said things, the ways of good, the ways of evil, and to see, to gain more of an understanding and knowledge about what is what. So he did, and he decided to join the Galactic Patrol, and that was his bias. Even though he had to remain neutral in his position of not using his power, he still had a bias in doing more good than, how he would with evil. So when they trained, I think the emphasis was having Goku kind of sway him more into believing and seeing the ways of how some mortals can be, or how they can function in Universe 7. With Goku's case, Maris had, asked him, like, so do you fight to, kind of get bad guys to become good again? He's like, no, not really. I just, I want to fight to get stronger. And if as an end result, if they're stronger than me, I'll just get stronger myself and hopefully they'll learn. So Maris did see the value that Goku brought because he viewed him in saying, well, the Galactic Patrol kind of does the same thing. So to see him vanish the way he did, I don't have a problem with that, only because they had spent time together. They had a common goal in defeating this guy. And although Maris was very limited and restricted in doing such things to, use his angelic powers, they went about it in a way to where it actually, made them feel a little closer as friends, especially while spending time in the Rosat to see them grow. And then for Goku ultimately to see one of his friends vanish and breaking this code for the sake of helping him, that added more, I would say, than how we saw with 16 and Gohan, only because those two just met on the battlefield for the first time. So why is it okay for people to crap on Goku and Maris's friendship and what they've gone through to get to that point, when they did spend time, multiple, you can say weeks, I think it was 2 months in the Rosat. So they spent a lot of time together and getting to know each other and getting to study one another. Whereas Gohan and 16 just met. They have no connection. It's just Android and Saiyan, and that's it. He got his head smashed in. So that was okay, right? So I think with this, the only problem I have is that I think Maris should have stayed dead. But with that being said, I think that their overall, the value of adding Maris in there to ultimately get to where he wanted Goku to be was good. I just think that the overall end result should have been Maris did what he did, and he should have remained erased from existence.
I actually hope that when the anime adaptation comes, that they do show more of Goku and Maris like inside of the Rosat, so that way we can see them bonding a bit more. I think if they would have shown more, that would have been cool. I do want to make a point about 16 and Gohan. The thing about that scene, dude, is that the dub really kind of ruined that scene, because when Stephanie Nadolny is hitting those lines about 16, you love life, and that whole thing, like, that made a lot of people believe, like, wait a minute, were they friends off screen? Like, in the Japanese version, Nozawa doesn't say anything. It's just his head gets stepped on, Gohan screams, and that's it. But those extra lines kind of, which annoy the piss out of me, bro. I cannot stand when they did this. People defend this, but it's like, dude, you're recontextualizing the scene, because Gohan was more so angry at the fact that of the message that 16 was giving him. It wasn't so much that he loved 16. It was more so that what 16 said, those words impacted him. Whereas in the dub, they made it seem like they had a friendship. So to me, I've always felt like that scene, the dub really recontextualized it, and you gotta watch it in Japanese, dude. I've been screaming this at people for 5 years. I don't care what you think about voice actors or your nostalgia. You have to run through it at least once in Japanese, because you'll be surprised as to how much they changed. In fact, I dare you to, if you don't want to do that, watch the dub with the subs turned on, and you'll see how crazy it was. I'm not trying to bash the dub or anything. I'm just saying that scene was totally people are listening to this probably never saw the Japanese version. Some of them didn't, and I'm telling you, it was very different. I do agree with you that Goku and Maris had a much deeper connection. Opie, what do you think, bro? What do you think about Maris as a character? Were you happy he was an angel? Do you think that the Goku friendship was earned, and was his sacrifice, was it meaningful, meaningless, and did they bring him back too soon? Because honestly, in this last chapter, he's back already, and it just seems it came off like a little bit of a cop out, honestly.
Yeah, he came back way too soon. Yeah, he came back way too quickly. I think we can all agree on that. One thing I will say though is that I do like the way that he went out. The reason he went out doesn't really have to do much with Goku, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like to say, "Oh, it's his connection to Goku," but the way I see it is, even before Goku came into the picture, Mirrors was already struggling internally with him essentially wanting to break the rules to help the Galactic Patrol. There was a hidden story that we don't really see that has been happening with Mirrors. So we know that the angels are supposed to be impartial, and he was specifically sent to Universe 7 for the specific purpose of seeing the side of good and virtue, right? So it appears we can infer that the angels have to see both sides, the sides of bad and good. Now, Mirrors specifically states that typically the bad guys are the ones who are stronger than the good guys. However,
it's the same thing in Star Wars, bro. It's the
right.
Same idea.
But for him, experiencing his fellow comrades who have no chance against the bad guys, but even so, they continue to fight, right? Even though they know they're probably going to lose. Him seeing that.
And not to mention, don't forget how Moro, let me interrupt you, but when Moro tells Goku, I don't need to train. Like, the bad guys like Frieza and these guys, they don't need to train. Like, I'm already strong. Whereas the good guys have to kind of overcome this, you know? So that point got brought up later, indirectly, of course, with Moro. But I'm sorry, bro, continue.
Yeah, so he said, so this is something that he had already been struggling with since the time that he joined the Galactic Patrol. He did say that seeing Goku helped strengthen his resolve even further. So he was already planning. There was just something he was struggling with internally already. Goku just pretty much gave him the push to where he said, okay, now I'm going to make the ultimate sacrifice. But this is something that he had been already contemplated for a long time. And that, to me, is what makes him like a special character. It had nothing to do with Goku, but it's the fact that he, as an individual, saw that he loved life, right? He had that bias. He understood that he had that bias, but he was okay with it, and he was willing to sacrifice himself for his conviction. I thought that was pretty awesome.
All right. Emish, do you have any thoughts on Mirrors as a character? Did you care about him? Do you think, just your thoughts overall on him as a character, introduction, and also his death, and was it earned and all that stuff?
Yeah, so the thing about Maris is pretty interesting. I guess first, let me just touch upon like the Android 16 point, since like, you know, that was referenced a couple times. So
it's a comparison people have made, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it depends. I mean, if it's it tends to be like a negative comparison people made. Like, for example, well, nobody bitched about it when Gohan did it with 16, right? And you mentioned the way like the dub handles it, and even I mean, because I grew up on the dub, right? And I had to go back to watch like the original source material, so I had to learn. You know, right. I had to interpret things differently. But even when I saw the dub, I think the point they weren't really trying to sell that Gohan, you know, didn't really have an established relationship with 16. But it's more so like they were trying to sell this idea that, you know, you love life and you were just an android. Right. Like that was the whole shtick behind it. So you know, naturally, in conjunction with the fact that Cell is like telling the Cell Juniors to kill all his friends and family, but now just some random robot that was originally designed to kill his father. Whether or not Gohan knows that doesn't really matter, but that's essentially, you know, what's being portrayed to like the viewer. So this android that was originally, you know, designed to kill Goku as a last resort kind of thing, ends up sacrificing himself, right? And then takes the time to kind of give Gohan this speech, and automatically Gohan's just like, all right, you know, he's like 11 at the time, but like 9 in the manga, I think. And he's like, okay, well, that's it. I got to step up and I have to do this. That's it. You know, that's the final straw. So it's more of a relation, not so much of an established relationship, but it's just more to the fact that, yeah, like even though Gohan is innocent, Android 16 kind of relates himself to Gohan. You don't like to hurt, you like peace, things, so on and so forth, but it's because you cherish life that you must protect it. So he kind of becomes like a father figure in terms of trying to relay, because Goku at the time was like, Gohan. Yeah, because all Goku was doing at the time was, Gohan, you have it. You can take this guy, no problem, bro. You got this, no problem. But 16 was trying to kind of relate to Gohan because Gohan is a child, and then that's, later on, that message is hammered into Goku's head. Like, in the dub, it's the same thing. Like in the dub, he may be the most powerful warrior in the universe or on the planet, but he doesn't thirst for battle and mayhem. He's not a fighter like you. And then automatically Goku's like, holy shit, I got to jump back in, give me a senzu bean. So it's just, it's not really like a relationship, but it's more to the fact that they can relate to one another, even though they've never met each other at all. But just that speech, it was able to reach Gohan as a character. And then that kind of pushed Gohan through it. In the Japanese, there's no, Nothing. We get soul versus soul. We get like the whole music, and then he
Yes.
just transforms.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but as far as Maris, as far as Maris, great character. I think he grew on a lot of people overall. I think us finding out that he was ultimately like an angel it felt like a double-edged sword because it felt risky. Okay, how do you go about this? If you have an angel who has a bias now, then naturally people are going to assume that surely he can't be the only trainee that was dispatched, right? Are we going to get concepts for like evil angels and things of that nature? Because another risk factor that comes into play now,
maybe.
right? And another risk factor that comes into play now is the fact that you have to ask yourself, well, okay, if this guy is an angel or this guy's a new character, we're implementing new characters, but it seems like every pivotal character or every main supporting character that comes into play has some kind of relationship with gods. So you have Majin Buu and the Daikaio. You have Maris, who's an angel. You have Moro, who's had beef with the gods. So there's a lot of emphasis on god characters still. And I think, with the introduction of Granola now, even though in Black and White he has his design is like very similar to Angel's, but we got the recent color scan of him recently, and that kind of just throws the idea off now, right? So he feels different. He feels like a character that could be an angel tier threat, right? Without having to be an angel because he's seeking 7-3, but that's a separate discussion. Now going back to Maris grew on people over time because every time he came into play, he bailed Goku and Vegeta and everybody out. Every time he was able to do things tomorrow that nobody else could do, and he did it effortlessly. And as Opie mentioned, because how he was struggling internally and things of that nature, it's actually stated that Whis knew of his plan to go to battle to do battle with Moro himself. And we can assume that that's the case mainly because had Goku and Vegeta failed, ultimately he would have stepped in regardless. I'm not a fan. I was never a fan of Toyo using Maris's existence as a means to push Goku further into Ultra Instinct, and here's why. In the Tournament of Power, Goku does all this stuff temporarily and by accident. He actually goes into Ultra Instinct Sign at will after 17 self-destructs. Right. And Jiren gives him this whole speech, and Goku's like, well, that 17, he was an android or whatever, but, getting mad about him dying won't change anything. Boom, he goes into Sign. I need to keep growing. And then it's established by Whis in both the anime and the manga, yes, the manga too, that he is getting deeper and deeper into Ultra Instinct, and he's able to mitigate damage by avoiding vitals and so on and so forth. And then that's further substantiated via his conversations and interactions with Jiren. My heart is as calm as the streams of Mount Paozu or whatever, and and Jiren thinks that he looks awfully relaxed, and Goku's like, well, it's not like this is easy. This shit is difficult, dude. Like, what are you talking about? And then he gets deeper and deeper to Ultra Instinct and masters it. Now we have an angel who has trained Goku to tap into that same power at will, but he needs another push to do it now for some reason, right? And it's just interesting because the original lore kind of suggests that Goku, once he reaches the Sign state, he'd have to maintain control in the face of a jarring shock to his emotions. That's how Maris establishes as to what Ultra Instinct is. And that's further substantiated via their interactions in the Room of Spirit and Time, when Maris asks Goku about Ultra Instinct, that he presumes that he was in a life or death situation, right? That he must have been in extreme crisis in the first act.
We talked about that when it first happened. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of lore. And ultimately what it comes down to is that Maris himself intended to fight Moro. And the issue, though, is that he never really intended to fight Moro 7-3. And that's substantiated because Maris takes his resolve of wanting to defeat Moro by himself into, okay, I can't beat him now, so I got to push Goku, because if Goku gets Ultra Instinct at his current strength, he'll be able to defeat Moro with no difficulty. And obviously that's substantiated via the interaction. So I think a lot of people responded positively to Maris as a character because he, every time he showed up, he did something really crazy. And the idea of him being an angel was just a theory at the time. But seeing how he moved and things of that nature automatically put him on the radar. Seeing him train with Goku, we get the confirmation of being an angel. We were like, okay, now it all makes sense. Holy shit. This guy's an angel. He's going to fight Moro. Oh my God, Moro's this powerful. So the gist of it is that Maris added a lot of value to Moro as an opposition, to Goku in terms of his quest for becoming stronger, and even to Vegeta and basically to everybody around him, and even the Galactic Patrol. So, we all thought that he was dead. So naturally, the Galactic Patrol is easy pickings now, especially if Goku and Vegeta aren't involved anymore. But naturally, Age Maris is alive now. I don't like how they brought him back to life, simply because, Shin, the Supreme Kai of Universe 7, he had nothing to do with this arc. I feel like they could have just had Goku ask for a favor. Maybe Goku could have asked for the favor because it's technically it's kind of his fault that Maris sacrificed himself to begin with. And he made things worse because he takes on Maris's will, gets UI, and then literally says, "Nah, son, I'm gonna fight him as an Earthling now. Forget the Galactic Patrol. Here's a sensu bean. Do you even train, bro? I would love to fight you again, bro." And all this other stuff. And he immediately, it feels like he drops Maris's will, even though he says that it lives on within him, and decides to make a decision that, that is a weird decision to make by default. And then ultimately he comes back to life through someone who had nothing to do with the arc, and that's the Supreme Crab Universe 7. So again, Goku asking for a favor, maybe stressing to, the Grand Priest or to whoever to bring him back, could have at least felt like it was redeeming the decisions that he made against Moro. I think that would have at least helped patch those up, especially considering the fact that he gave him a sensu bean. So I think Maris, a lot of people reacted very positively to him. And I think him coming back as a mortal may deter people from wanting to look into him even more, because it's an obvious, the intent here feels like it's obvious. Without his angel powers, he won't be able to assist Goku and Vegeta and company into taking down Granola, who should, in theory, be stronger at his highest point than the previous enemy.
I disagree with that.
We don't know yet, but what's your disagreement there?
Well, first, I want to say that we're also forgetting that this entire saga, or this entire arc, was also a test for Miras. He was literally being tested the entire time to see which way he was going to go. He's not going to be given the title of an angel until he's able to prove that he is fully impartial, which is why this entire thing was a test for him, right? If you're helping the bad guys and you're an angel, well, that power might lead you to get corrupted. If you're one of the good guys and you're seeing your comrades getting killed, well, that power that you have might lead you to wanting to help because you have the power, right? So, but in terms of his strength, he's not an angel anymore. But keep in mind, this is a very small detail, but it's a big detail. He achieved Ultra Instinct, right, before he was sent to Universe 7. It wasn't after he became an angel. It was still during his training that he achieved Ultra Instinct.
Did they state that? Because I don't remember that.
No, well, he has Ultra Instinct, right? He's still an angel in training.
I know that. He might still have the knowledge of Ultra Instinct in his brain. Like even though he's not an angel anymore, he might still have it, but exactly. I just don't remember if they actually stated when he learned Ultra Instinct. That's what I'm asking you about, because I don't remember.
No, it wasn't stated when he learned it, but the fact that he was still in training and he already knew Ultra Instinct before he passed his full training, then that means that Ultra Instinct is part of the training as well. So now that he's not an angel anymore, yeah, he loses angelic powers, but why would he lose Ultra Instinct? Ultra Instinct it's not just a technique, right? It's a state of being. It's a state of mind. It's so difficult to achieve that not even Beerus has perfected it. And he does have Ultra Instinct. The manga does confirm that, but he hasn't perfected it. That's why it's so hard for Goku to perfect it. And clearly, Miras has been training for a very long time, right? So I don't see why he will suddenly lose Ultra Instinct if that's not something that necessarily has to do with just power.
Well, okay, so there's a couple ways to look at it. Yeah, I don't want to keep dragging this. So the disagreement.
I'm curious about your thoughts. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the disagreement is fine. So I don't want to go too far into like power scale territory, but the manga substantiates pretty often that Goku has surpassed Maris, right? So even if Maris still has the technique and can still utilize it, if Granola at the end goal of his prime, like whatever his goal is, how strong he becomes, he is going to be at a level that Maris would not be effective anyway, right? So if he's relative to Goku like that, then it wouldn't even matter.
He will be stronger based on how the series progresses. So, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. So I think what Opie is trying to suggest. So I think what Opie is trying to suggest is that Goku does reference to Moro that he has trained his body to own this technique. It's not something you can wield just because you feel like it, which is something that's stated versus Moro. But we know that it's much further than that. It's not about just training your body specifically. Now, naturally, because Maris has trained to achieve that power, that state of being, he should still have it in theory. But the issue is that the technique or the power or whatever you want to call it has been referenced as divine power multiple times throughout the course of the anime, throughout supplementary material such as guides and interviews, for example, and as well as the manga. So if it is divine power, and Maris no longer possesses a divine body,
I see what you
then
mean.
It really comes down to okay, he may not be as effective. He may still be able to fight because remember, in his suppressed state, he was above UI Omen level Goku. So there's no issue there. But it's because he was an angel in his suppressed state that he was that strong. So Dragon Ball Super is very explicit when it comes to, okay, I've removed this guy's power, I've removed this, or I've removed that. So naturally, we would assume that he no longer has it. I think it's a healthy discussion to have in terms of like, could he still have it based on the lore of Ultra Instinct? But the lore of Ultra Instinct seems to favor the idea of it being divine power, and there are a lot of prerequisites to obtain said power.
Well,
right?
what about Roshi's like weird version of UI? You remember that?
Roshi's, but it wasn't even. It's saying it's similar in principle, but a far cry from that technique is what we state specifically. So it's the movements are similar, but it's not even close to being the same because, well, he still gets hit. He can't take attacks. He can't mitigate damage. He can't, move in succession really, so on and so forth. So there is a big difference there. It was just, that was more so of a tool to kind of excel Goku into, tapping into that power, because the whole narrative for the Tournament of Power, especially in the manga, was Goku overcoming a specific wall. And then once he reaches Ultra Instinct Omen or Sign, Jiren says, so you've overcome your wall and arrived at that state. And Goku says, probably. And then Jiren says, so it is in that state that you shall fall. And then there's more substantiation for Goku overcoming a wall. And that wall is that wall that he saw in the Zen exhibition match, which was all the gods of destruction fighting each other. So there's a lot of, it's blatantly there. But I just think that Maris, he's weaker than Goku, obviously, even as an angel. And, it's just the next baddie tends to have, more of an impact than the previous one did, whether it's in relation to power or whether it's in relation to just, his mindset or tactical abilities. Is we don't really know that yet, but we'll see ultimately in the future.
Well, where does it say he's weaker than Goku? I've never seen that.
I was going to mention that. I don't think it actually says that, but that was the question I had, because are you saying that Goku is angel tier? But remember, they never said that Maris is equal to Whis. In fact, I believe that Maris is several levels below Whis. He's not there yet.
So the way this works is that you have to look at the way 7-3 operates. Right. And we know that 7-3 copies you the way you are. It doesn't mean so the way you are is not described as the way you are currently, as in I copy your base form. So when Moro 7-3 copies Vegeta, we see that in the crystal, even though Vegeta was in his Super Saiyan Blue evolution state, the crystal showcases him in his base form. So it doesn't mean that he's copying his base power. Shimareka substantiates this further by suggesting and saying verbatim, any training you might have done recently, it's all useless since 7-3 copies you the way you are. So he copies you at your full potential. And we know that Maris in his suppressed state wasn't entirely utilizing Ultra Instinct, right? Because Moro 7-3 is able to contend with him. But he's actually Maris and Moro actually moving and responding to their attacks, whereas Goku, Moro just moved his neck and one-shotted him. So already there's a substantiation in terms of power gap and fighting capability. Now what you do is, because Moro 7-3 copied Maris, he copies him the way he is, meaning at his full power, right? Base, full power, everything, his ability, so on and so forth. That's why, even though when Moro gets his hand back, he activates Ultra Instinct, and then there's a lot of substantiation going forward to suggest that he's growing in power. Whis even says that his body is swelling in an attempt to contain the angel power that flows through it. So we know that he didn't necessarily copy like base Maris. He would copy characters at their full capabilities. It's just that Moro's body wasn't capable of maintaining that power, which is why Goku's statement about him owning his body to utilize that technique, and it's not something that you can use just because you feel like it, makes a lot of sense. Also, we can substantiate that further, because if you were to compare the amount of the amount of training that Moro has done throughout the entirety of his lifespan, and he admits he's never trained before to Goku.
Right.
Even against the Goku in the Tournament of Power who utilized Ultra Instinct temporarily, he didn't possess, because Whis states that he may have achieved Ultra Instinct, but he hasn't trained enough to wield it properly. Even that Goku has had more godly training than Moro has, right? So it doesn't have to be stated. Things can be implied. And Maris also has more faith. Maris also has more faith in Goku's ability to take down Moro than his own. We know this because Maris powers up, and he hits Moro in the forehead. And even if you want to argue that he was getting weaker, it would, did he get weaker than his base level? No. Well, I mean, that's up for discussion, but the most important thing to note here is that he punches Moro in the forehead and only manages to break the crystal. Moro gets back up, he's unscathed. Whereas when Goku does the same thing to Moro with the flick of his wrist. He flips Moro away.
here's where I have to disagree, because we have to remember what his motives were. What were Miras's motives? His motive wasn't to kill Moro. That wasn't his plan.
True.
He probably had the power to one-shot the dude with his eyes closed, but his purpose was for life, to see his comrades, to put his comrades in the position where they can, because remember, he mentioned how even though they're weaker and they continue to fight. So he wanted to give Goku that opportunity, since Goku is the one that pretty much helped him with his conviction. His goal wasn't to save the universe himself. It was to just help the life beings around him that he grew to love and put them in the situation where they can do it for themselves. He kind of just gave them a little handicap.
Right. So that's all great. Right. That's fine. And that's totally fine if you want to argue narrative, right? But narrative also favors the idea of Maris intending to fight a weaker Moro, which is the one that Goku prepared to fight, which is Prime Goat Moro, which was roughly maybe slightly greater than Ultra Instinct Omen Goku, who Maris in his base suppressed is much, 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 much stronger than. So Maris in his base would have no issue one-shotting Goat Moro. But it's once he 873 that things changed, right? So these are like actual feats, and then you can actually use the actual feats to say, okay, which of these feats makes sense with the narrative, right? That's simply the case. So Maris loses faith in his own ability to defeat Moro and instills that faith into Goku, which is substantiated when he says, Goku, if you were to achieve Ultra Instinct at your current strength, you would not fall to Moro or anyone else for that matter. And that's clearly showcased. So Maris implies his faith, his ability to defeat Moro, and he puts that and instills that into Goku. Because we know prior to that, whether or not Goku and Vegeta were able to defeat Moro, Maris already intended to face Moro himself. And you've mentioned that, and all of us have already. So that's my position, because I feel like it makes more sense with the narrative. Maris's motives and things of that nature fall apart once he realizes that he's not capable of defeating Moro himself, which it's why he instills so much faith into Goku. And the main point is this: even if he could one-shot, right, Moro, that's a gamble, right? And that gamble, and we know Maris's character, he's not really the kind of guy to make a gamble, right? He either does something or he doesn't. He can miscalculate things, and he's even miscalculated a Goat Moro's power, because we have a whole chapter dedicated, and it's titled Maris's Miscalculation. But the point is that we can use that evidence and even the feats and the narrative evidence to suggest that the idea of him instilling faith in Goku makes more sense, especially if especially if the goal here for the writer is to get Goku in a position to obtain divine power, right? Okay. So it all ends up coming together.
All right. Well, let me ask Alex then to be the tiebreaker here, bro. So, what do you think about this discussion here? Do you think that Maris could have defeated Moro at that point, and he was just kind of giving Goku the victory, not the victory, but sort of the evolution of his character? Or do you think that Maris couldn't have beaten that version of Moro?
I think a lot of people really were asking the question on why he didn't, if he could, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense on why you would prolong. No, yeah, you would prolong a battle that is seemingly unwinnable, especially against the person that was not only relative to his opponents, but he was constantly evolving and growing. A good example of one of the reasons why I really enjoyed Moro in this arc by comparison to any other arc is the fact that a good example of Moro's cunningness was when he was doing his thing on planet Zune and going about with Sagambo and eating planets. He felt Vegeta growing from a faraway place. He wasn't able to register where Goku was because he was trying to feel out where Goku was, but he wasn't able to sense him because he was in the Rosad. So he felt Vegeta growing, and then he told Sagambo, perhaps he was questioning his own ceiling and saying, perhaps I don't have a ceiling to my power. I'm just going to keep on consuming and growing. So I think our heroes really underestimated Moro's growth factor here in the idea that even when Omen Goku fought him, Moro kind of teased him and saying, well, did you really think that this was all I can muster, you fool? Like, he fought him on a relative level, powered up, zapped him out of UI, and let's just put this into perspective. He was able to not only be relative to Omen Goku prior to using his full power, but this is a Goku that was fresh on the battlefield. He was able to, after powering up, zap out Goku out of Omen with complete finesse, get Goku to power back up, beat him down again, and then even after he was able to transform and fight Omen Goku several times over, he was still able to best him until Goku had reached MUI tier, right? So once Goku mastered Ultra Instinct, you have to put into perspective how the fight was dictated based on the fight with Maris. Maris was able to instill dominance over Moro in a sense to where Moro wasn't able to be receptive to Maris that much outside of when he was using his pole. Whereas when he fought Goku, there was never an instance where Moro was able to physically touch Goku. He wasn't able to get a single shot in until he copied him. And even then, when we saw, arguably, you can look at it as Ultra Instinct Moro or Angelic Moro, when they fought and they were circling the earth, Moro was only able then to get one solid kick in Goku, knocking him down and forcing Goku in getting up by then telling Moro, you're going to have to try harder. So let's just put this into perspective. For the first time, we have what you can consider to be an Ultra Instinct versus Ultra Instinct fight. Goku gets smacked in the face, hits the earth, gets up, brushes himself off, and tells Moro, almost as if nothing happened, hey, you're going to have to try harder. If that's not a testament as to how strong Goku was by comparison to Maris, who even based on self-proclamation had told Goku, this final attack should be it. And you have to look at it this way, right? Right before Maris rushed on in to crack Moro's center crystal, he told Goku, I leave all of this in this next attack. This next attack will be my last. I put everything in this next attack. Okay, fine. So if you want to substantiate the narrative that Maris is that much more powerful than even arguably an MUI Goku, then how come at that point when Maris had punched Moro in the face, if that was his supposed full power, he didn't just blow Moro's head off clean right off his body right then and there? Like, why wasn't there any more damage being instilled on Moro? But instead, right after Moro had got up, rushed back on the battlefield and asking Goku, "Where's Maris?" You know, like you see the difference when Goku beat him down versus how Maris beat him down. When Maris was shooting his and stealing off his crystals and smacking him around, Moro kept getting up and just, pursuing that even more. Whereas when MUI Goku fought him, this dude was on his last leg. He was shaking. He was even telling Goku, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. He was begging for his life. Yeah, he was cowering in fear. And that's the difference, I feel like, when we look at Maris's quote unquote full power when he punched Moro in the face and cracking his crystal by comparison to what MUI Goku did in lambasting him and beating him around like almost as if he wasn't even trying, and to see Moro kind of struggle to stand on his feet by comparison to what we've seen a quote full power Maris do in his angel state. So I would say that this was the first time that we got to see the introduction, I guess you could say, of a low tier angel level enemy, that being Angelic Moro, which was a little disappointing because I really would have wanted something more out of that fight. I get the narrative of him having to just turn into like this.
His body was
It reminded me of like Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers, right? And he was just morphing into the earth and whatever. But what I was really hoping for was to see what this honed version of Ultra Instinct Goku can do against someone who not only had copied Piccolo, Gohan, Vegeta at their peak, but also now had consumed 7-3 and has the power of Maris, an angel trainee. Despite how you want to look at it, I think that if there was ever a time to give MUI Goku a solid fight, I think that would have been it. But I really did not like how Toyo kind of inserted the idea that Moro was relative in speed and they were able to kind of go back and forth. He got one solid kick in, Goku got up, brushed it off, and that was the end of it. So it was what it was from that perspective. But I think when looking at who did what more, and I think when looking at what Maris had stated to Goku before he ran on in and getting erased, he told Goku, I leave and I entrust all of my power into this one final attack. He went in, cracked the crystal, but what happened after? Moro stood up. So,
by the way, just to add on to that, so that kick that Moro hits Goku with, that's what would happen if Maris kicked him. Goku would just get back up. It's the same thing.
Well,
because we know that. Yeah, no. The point is that could Maris definitively put down Moro 7-3? No. It's why he instills his faith into Goku, right? Could he one shot Goat Moro? Yes, because he was casually above that level of power, like casually, without even trying. So that's the difference ultimately when it comes down to that. And we know that the way 7-3 works, and Moro 7-3, whatever he copies, he adds that to himself. So it's Maris and Moro. And Goku just got back up and said, try harder, bro. So that's pretty much
or
it.
As Revolution calls him, Morris. Well, I mean,
this might be... Go ahead.
I was just saying, I always thought that Maris was suppressed though. But what were you gonna say, bro?
Yeah.
It might be what?
Yeah, I agree with that statement about him being suppressed. I think this is probably just not an area where we're gonna end up agreeing, because I
That's
do
fine.
believe that Mirror
We'll
is
let the
being
commenters. We'll let the
Yeah.
commenters let us know if you think Maris was suppressed at all in this whole thing. Like if he really has some secret power that we don't know about, because you never know.
Well, I
They're
think
angels, bro.
I think we're underestimating what it takes to be a trainee angel and the power that they have, and we can't assume that he had Moro when he absorbed him and had Ultra Instinct. That was never confirmed. And if you actually look at the way that Moro was fighting, it didn't look like a way Ultra Instinct is utilized. So I never actually bought to the idea that it was Ultra Instinct versus Ultra Instinct. I don't think it ever was.
Well, we're going a bit long here, but I have a
Yeah,
couple
go
more
ahead.
here for you guys. Okay, so next kind of topic, real quick, is the evolution of Goku and Vegeta. Goku did MUI, mastered it, silver haired. I think it was way too soon. I've said that before. I wanted them to drag it out more in Super. I wanted Goku to kind of earn it a bit more. I just felt it was way too soon. And then you have Vegeta going off to the yard dress, learning how to do teleportation, learning how to do Force Spirit Fission, making himself a dangerous opponent. Goku, I think, is still more powerful, obviously, but I think Vegeta might be, with those techniques, is ridiculously dangerous, because if he can control energy the way he can with Force Spirit Fission, that's going to end up knocking some characters in a loop. So I'm going to start with Opie this time. Not just when it comes to strength, though. What do you think about Goku and Vegeta's evolution as characters and their strength and their de-evolution? Because there was some BS writing here when it comes to Goku and Vegeta. But what do you think about them in this arc as far as the way those characters are kind of, evolving / de-evolving, whatever?
I felt that the writers couldn't get their goal straight. Like they were flip-flopping as to what they want to do with Goku and Vegeta. It seems like there was an evolution at first, and they were going through their own sort of training, right? They were being trained by different type of masters. Miris was training Goku. Paraba, I don't even know if that's his real name, or if I'm saying it correctly. But Ibara, yeah. So he was training Vegeta, and Vegeta had a ton of potential. The things that he was learning, these are sort of techniques that we haven't really seen other beings use. These are high level techniques that require a lot of training and concentration and control of your spirit. And Vegeta he was taken down for most of the ending of the saga. So that was hugely disappointing. There was so much more that Vegeta could have done. And I felt that the way that he was taken down, it almost felt more like it was done because of writing. That the writing and the fact that they wanted Goku to shine kind of forced Vegeta to be taken down so easily. I think if it wasn't for that, Vegeta definitely would have had a stronger chance against Moro, even 7-3 Moro. Goku, on the other hand, I think he progressed way too quickly. Him perfecting Ultra Instinct, even though he was training with an angel who had perfected Ultra Instinct, I still felt that from a writing perspective, it was way too fast. Yes, from a timeline perspective, it makes sense. 6 months non-stop training with mirrors, sure, I can realistically see him perfecting Ultra Instinct, but from a writing perspective, where do we go from here? He almost, the moment that he actually was able to grow, like his spirit grow.
You think he's OP?
Well, that was kind of a reference to achieving enlightenment. So him essentially achieving enlightenment.
I covered that in the GT video I did, the end of GT Explained. That's what happened there.
So he's just way too OP right now. Personally, I don't think that this new character is the evil bad guy. I think he might actually be an ally or a third party. But whoever the villain is going to be for the next saga, they're going to have to figure out a different way to defeat Goku. Because if you're going to have just strength versus strength, you're going to have somebody who's even higher than Master Ultra Instinct Goku, then that's not going to make any sense, right? Where have you been this whole time? Is basically going to be my question.
I don't want any more transformations either, bro. I'm done with transformations. Let's keep it to where it is. Let UI be the max, bro. I don't know more. He can get stronger in UI. That's fine, but I don't want like UI stacked with Kaioken or Super Saiyan Blue UI. I don't want to see that, dude. I'm sorry. I know some fans do. No more forms. I'm done with the forms. So, Emish, your thoughts on Goku and Vegeta's evolution or de-evolution as characters and in their power. Did you think it was too soon? And we talked about this a little bit in the previous video we did, but I wanted to get your thoughts now that the arc is over.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to refrain from talking about Vegeta because I think chapter 61 afterwards, he's just, I've lost faith in him. I don't even, trash, garbage.
They just buried him, yeah.
Yeah. So look at it this way. Like, one of the things I've said, this is around the time when I was, all of us were ranting about the Senzu Bean thing.
Yeah,
right.
A couple months
and
ago.
I had said one of the many things, if you want to talk about consistency, probably, like, if you had to pick top 3 things that Toyo does in the Dragon Ball Super manga, one of those top 3 would be the way Vegeta loses, right? So the way he gets shoved to the side, the way he just gets bitch slapped and bitch made, right? So think about this. So, he's going to Yardred. Oh my God, right? The first thing you think about when Vegeta is talking about spirit control and owning his ki is Ultra Instinct, which is something Goku did an arc ago, 2 arcs ago, right? Naturally. That's the first thing you think about. Even though Vegeta's already said Kakarot can have his Ultra Instinct for all I care, I've given up all hope of achieving that, actually. I'll beat you in my own way, Jiren. It's stated in both the anime and the manga. So, so what does he do? What does Vegeta do? He ends up doing something that Goku did back when I was a kid. Right? And I know when I say it that way, it comes across as harsh. But Goku never learned Spirit Vision. Who cares? Right? So Spirit Vision is it's devalued immediately when Moro gets when Moro eats 7-3. So what happens now is basically it proves that if you're faster and stronger than your opponent, Force Spirit Vision won't do jack shit to you because you have to touch the opponent in order to apply FSF. And if you can't touch your opponent, then it doesn't matter, right? So what do they do later? They give Vegeta a target that he can't miss, and we talked about this on the Nightmare of Moro video, that, you have to punch the earth. Like, Moro is the earth. Okay, just punch the earth and there. But it's even made worse for Vegeta because now what happens? Moro's too strong. He's draining me faster than I can drain him.
I like how you said I'm not going to talk about Vegeta.
Yeah, but those are my thoughts about him, right? I think he needs to get with the program. I think it's already been 3 arcs that Vegeta is like, I'll surpass Kakarot in my own way. Good luck, dude. This guy's MUI ready. He has MUI at will. He can tap into it at will. Good luck. That's that. Goku's
Blue Evolution won't do shit. Go ahead, bro.
Who cares? Like, who gives a shit? Like, who really gives a shit? So then you look at Goku. Now, I'm conflicted with Goku. So I think Vegeta has proven him. I think Toyo has proven Vegeta to be garbage after chapter 61. Yes, the comments. Let me address the comment section real quick. Yes, he was useful in the final chapter. We all talked about it, but they had to give him a target. Yeah, and who was more useful, by the way. But they had to give Vegeta a target that he couldn't miss, which is the planet. Like, that's not a feat. Paibara could do that. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't. A Yardrat could do that. Like, it doesn't matter now. And we talked about this on the Nightmare of Moro video because I said if they wanted to substantiate Vegeta being useful, they could have it to where Moro is so strong, or maybe Vegeta's never done this technique to a planet before, so it'll take time. But they didn't do that. They just had it to where, Moro's draining me faster than I can drain him, and thus making Force Spirit Vision, it puts a cap on it. You know what I'm saying? It makes it not that much of a useful technique. Now, as for Goku, I'm conflicted. I think Vegeta was caca, like garbage, but then I think Goku's retarded. So in the sense where he ends up making the same mistakes. Yeah, so he ends up making the same mistakes that he made many years ago. And that is a form of character regression. If you want to reference things, if you want to bring up references and use these references as major plot points going forward, the reason those references, like from the Cell arc and Buu arc and Frieza arc and stuff like that, the reason those things worked at that time is because we were still in the process of getting to know these characters and watch them grow and watch them develop. So Goku was still learning. Right? Vegeta was still learning, so on and so forth. But we've gotten past that. So what happens is that he forces Goku to make a decision just simply because of how strong he's gotten and how strong he's become. And I get it. Saiyans are, they get this ego once they get to a position of power. But Goku already establishes that he's inherited Meris' will, and it's his job to defeat him, to put Moro down. And he chooses not to, even when Moro gets UI. Right? Even when he copies Meris, even when he gets the hand back, Goku is still giving this dude chances, and he tells him verbatim, abandon Meris' abilities or be destroyed by them. He's literally giving him chances still. And then Whis has to jump in and tell him, if you intend to kill Moro, it is unwise to push him past this point. You should do that shit right now. And then Goku's like, all right, bro, wakata. And he just turns around.
Typical Goku bullshit. Yeah.
Typical Goku or typical shonen kind of thing. Yeah, but even other shonen anime, they don't handle things this way. They kind of take a different approach. So again, this is why
you would think we'd be past this by now. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, if you want to have Goku be confident, that's fine, but don't have him repeat the same mistakes that he's already developed. Now I understand.
Yes.
And I understand that people are like, but Goku never changes, and there's multiple interviews. That's not true. Because that's the whole. Yeah, and he clearly does change. I mean, mastering Ultra Instinct would require a change in your character, obviously.
He changes all throughout the series from Dragon Ball all the way through the end of Z.
Yeah, and it's actually mentioned in the Vegeta Reborn chapter, where Piccolo suggests that Goku doesn't have to change. But that's not the Goku that they're talking about. They're talking about his personality, not the decisions that he makes because of his personality. We know that Goku is a very fair character. He likes to handle things fairly. He likes to give people chances. But after taking Maris's will and then pretty much substantiating that you're going to beat this guy and then not beating him because you want to be, you want to act harder, then that's just different. But again, I digress. Ultimately, the evolution of Goku, it's as far as him getting MUI now, I don't have an issue with it just because he mastered the sign level. And part of mastering the sign level, it's the gateway. All you have to do is just get deeper into that. But Toyo kind of like contradicts himself a little bit as far as the lore is concerned. But I think it's fine because he was training with an angel for 2 months, which translates into 6 months in the Room of Spirit and Time. And Maris pretty much gives him the blueprint towards achieving Ultra Instinct. So he fought against an angel for 6 months straight. So he's owned his body. He possesses a body that can utilize the technique, and he's, maintained self-control in the jarring shock, in the face of a jarring shock to his emotions. So if that's all you have to do, and if godly training is a prerequisite for that, then Goku's done it. Vegeta has the prerequisites for it too, by the way. But he's just this dude that I want to surpass Kakarot, but I'm going to do everything that leads me in the direction to not surpass him. And that's my issue with him. And it's really frustrating. Naturally, I will be doing a video. I'm sure many of you will be doing a video as to whether or not Vegeta will finally attain Ultra Instinct in the Granola arc.
Good joke. Good joke.
You know what we'll do? We'll just do Will Vegeta attain UI in every arc, bro. We'll just do it from now on.
Until he gets it.
Until he gets it. And then we'll do a video called Finally, and that's it. Finally, that's it.
As far as the transformations, it's Dragon Ball. As long as Dragon Ball Super exists, Saiyans will continue to evolve because they have no limits. They will continue to evolve, and that's just the way it's going to be. Could they just cap it out at MUI? Sure. But Goku is a Saiyan, so is Vegeta, and they will continue to evolve. I think we should brace ourselves for that at least. I don't think it's outlandish to suggest that. Though I think it is a deviation to apply Super Saiyan to MUI, but it's just a matter of where they decide to go with this. I don't really know.
Okay, Unreal, man. Do you have any thoughts on Goku and Vegeta's evolution or de-evolution in the Moro arc?
Okay, so from the beginning, it's as clear as day that they established the idea that Moro needs to die. We know that in chapter 43 when they basically established the premise, when they feel out his ki and they're like, okay, we can lock him up, but it's best if we kill him. I don't understand where we went along the way where it's repeated, right? Where it's constantly asked, hey, should we kill him? Should we kill him? Should we kill him? Yes, you've established this from the beginning, right? And I can understand where Goku's character comes into where it's like, come on, man. But I one thing that really caught my eye was, sure, Goku wants to reform people or, want them to become good again. I mean, based on how you want to look at it with Kid Buu, with Frieza, whatever. But one thing that I've noticed is never once did Goku even bother to give Goku Black Zamasu or Merge Zamasu a bean. Never once did he ever tell Zamasu, hey, you should be a good guy, bro. They knew right off the gate, okay, this guy's a problem. This guy's a big problem. We need to take him out now. And even then, Goku tried telling that to Vegeta in the manga, and Vegeta's like, oh, what are you so worrying about, Kakarot? They're going to fuse, so what, blah, blah. And Vegeta caused, a huge detriment to their strategy as they fused, in the future. But when looking at what happened with Moro, it was established early that he should die. the one thing I strongly disagree with was that premise with Goku, at least, in wanting to reform him and even asking him, like, have you ever thought about training? Why is that relevant? You established the idea from the beginning, like, this dude there's no redemption. I mean, there are some entities or factions or people that come about where there is no convincing, there is no going back to, there's no talking to. There's just some beings or people that you just simply can't talk to.
It's like sociopaths, like, in a way, right?
Exactly. You can't reason with him. You've tried and you've seen how he, even based on his own self-proclamation, had told you when you asked him about Sagambo, hey, wasn't that your friend? Why would you do that? Friends? I have no friends. I just have allies. Like, there are no such things as friends to me. There is no such thing as peace. So several times this idea was established, like, yo, you can't keep him around, and Goku's still trying to keep him around, right? So that was a bad move, I think. Vegeta's character was emphasized many times. He's going to planet Yardrat to learn of something that's going to give him leverage over Moro. Cool, no problem. You're building this, this premise where Vegeta's going to come back, not with the transformation, but with abilities that can be used in a tactical sense to aid our heroes in beating Moro, right?
Yes.
But here's where it fell off for me. So you go to planet Yardrat, you're establishing the premise of gigantification, the utilization of cloning, and all of these wacky things that even Vegeta was like, whoa, like, what is this? Pybrara is even able to heal, and all these wacky things, right? I would have much rather have preferred to see, if you want to keep it to where Goku's the powerhouse, fine. I would have had it to where we would have had the mimicry of Susanoo with Vegeta. I would have had it to where Vegeta was the one to use gigantification. It would have made more sense because he learned it from Pybrara. It would have made more sense to have Goku be the muscle, to have Ultra Instinct at its peak, go up against Planet Moro. And even though he can't get to him, you can have Vegeta be utilized in a sense to where he's the one to use gigantification. He's the one to use these cloning abilities to, let's just say if Moro is trying to grab him using multiple hands, okay, fine. You have multiple giant Vegetas grabbing onto those hands and preventing it from catching Goku. Like, you could have had it to where Vegeta could have been heavily more utilized at the end with all of the abilities and potential that he could have learned on Yardrat to aid Goku in this fight, to get Goku to have more leverage in going in to crack the crystal, versus having just Vegeta punch the floor for literally no means of getting anywhere, because it got him nowhere, right? He was punching the floor and nothing changed. So Moro ended up grabbing Goku anyway, just for him to gather energy together to give to Goku. Okay, but why does that matter? We've seen that before. How is that any different? So you're telling me all of this time on Yardrat, and you're just able to pass along energy to giving it to someone else? How is that any different than what we've seen go down before? So with the exception of, Oob's potential God Key that he has within him, that was passed down by the Daikaio. So that was fine. But I just felt as if Vegeta's character had regressed in a sense to where I liked the way he kind of was inserted from the beginning, because the first person to pop off against Moro was Vegeta. He was going to eat Eska, and Vegeta said, not on my watch. And it was a moment to where it's like, oh crap, okay, so ironically, he came to this planet long ago and he was slaughtering these people. Now he's actually fighting in a sense of wanting to protect them. That's cool. Right, so you had him do all these things from the beginning and establish this idea when he was fighting along with with Goku and the Daikaio against Moro's men, when he even confessed in saying, "Stupid God power, stupid magic. Like I'm gonna do this on my own terms, on my own way." And so with that, I felt as if Goku was purposely written to be dumb, in a sense to where you've established with Goku many times that Moro needs to die, but you're still trying to save face anyway by getting this guy to convert and become a good guy for what, yes. Right? Then you had Vegeta. Do you train, bro? Like, no, right? And then you have Vegeta, who emphasized on being able to learn of all of these abilities or whatever he needs to do to get the better of Moro, only for it to get him nowhere. So I just really hope that whatever Toyo does going forward, he's able to consult, I guess, with the people around him, along with Toriyama, on what they want to do to further these characters down the line. Because no matter how you want to look at it, Goku's always going to be Goku and Vegeta's always going to be Vegeta. But I feel as if their evolutionary process is still there for them to grow into better characters. But I felt as if there were certain instances in this manga, or at least for this arc, where as soon as you see them go forward a little bit, they kind of also fell back as well. So that was just kind of weird. Like, again, with the whole Senzu Bean thing, why? Just because you wanted to fight him at his peak or give him a chance for what? You've established that he needs to die several times. So why even try to give him a chance to escape to begin with, right? So
by the way, Vegeta ends up like falling asleep for 3 chapters straight.
Yeah.
Bodied by more. Kind of funny. So there's that too.
So I want to do a quick lightning round here because we're probably going to go 90 minutes here. We're at an hour and 15. Lightning round, not too much of a discussion, just kind of a yes or no and maybe a couple sentences if you have them. Number one, I'm going to start with Alex, then Opie, then Emish here. Side characters, Gohan, Piccolo, Yamcha came back, Tenshinhan, the androids, and Boo. How do you think they were utilized? I mean, I like some of it, but like Boo, but then Gohan's still a cheerleader. So again, we're gonna start with Unreal, then Opie, and then Emish here. Lightning round, side characters, go for it, bro.
Okay, so I hate calling them secondary characters because they're always going to be the primary, people part of the squad. But I will say in the manga, they were used better in the Moral arc than in the Tournament of Power. In the Tournament of Power, when they fought, you can say that, okay, Gohan had a great moment with Kefla, but that was so momentary to where he took out a heavy hitter, but it was just something to where it was so brief and just it felt as if they needed to kind of get that out the way.
And it was weird too, weird timing.
Yeah,
on
very,
that,
very, very weird. And I think that the delivery wasn't there. Whereas Piccolo, same thing. He was eliminated by Daemon, so it was just trash. Yamcha did nothing because he wasn't a part of the Tournament of Power, and Tien got eliminated by Sniper. Whatever. That's all. It was bad. But when looking at their utilization, especially Gohan and Piccolo's synchronization when they fought 7-3 was beautiful because as soon as one would do something, the other one would step in and aid them, and then vice versa. When 7-3 would copy them, they would still find a way around it and best him in battle. And then the same thing with Tien when he fought, I believe, the Metal Man, when Yamcha was getting some victories in the city by knocking out criminals and getting them locked up. It was great. I think like the way the secondary characters were utilized, I feel like they were used better than the TOP only because they were placed in a more centric position and they were able to do more versus what we've seen them do less in the TOP.
All right, Opie, man, what do you think about the side characters here?
I think for the only time, in my opinion, that they were used properly was when they were fighting the goons, Moro's goons, including 7-3. So they each had their moments, especially Krillin and Master Roshi had great moments. I loved it. But then when it came to Gohan and Piccolo fighting against Moro, it got to the point where even just Piccolo just admitted that they're useless. There's nothing that they can do. He just gave up. You're talking about some of the best duos on planet Earth who have a history of thinking outside the box, and then they're just gonna give up. Even if you're weaker, you've been in that situation before, facing it against somebody who's stronger than you. But the fact that they just gonna leave it up to Goku, I just feel like they were underutilized.
Yeah, and also I want to say to people, I know that people want Gohan to be like the main guy again. It's never gonna happen, bro. It's never happening. Dragon Ball Super is the Goku and Vegeta show, and the Goku. That's how it's gonna be, dude. I don't see Gohan. He's gonna get his moments. He's gonna have some fun here and there. Maybe kill a villain here and there. Like not even a main one, but he's not gonna take over as the main guy ever again. Forget it. It's not gonna happen. I just don't see it happening. Emish, man, what do you think about the side characters?
Yeah, so this will be quick. So Yamcha, Tien, Chaozu, laugh out loud. Why? Gohan. Gohan was cool. Like Gohan was cool. I mean, I think Gohan's quest for strength is substantially better in the manga than it is in the anime. Because in the anime, he just gives up. In the anime, you even have Videl pushing Goku to kind of join this tournament and stuff like. I mean, yeah, it's Videl pushing Gohan. Sorry, not Goku, to join this tournament to help Goku out and so on and so forth. So there is this idea that it's not Videl that's really holding Gohan back. It's Gohan who's holding Gohan back in the anime. In the manga, he continues to train. In the Tournament of Power, he's fighting Kefla evenly. And then in the Moral arc, he's like smacking around 7-3, no difficulty, right? So he does his thing, and then he gets like a rage boost, tries to hit Moro, and Moro breaks his teeth in. So there's that. Piccolo, retard. He's just a fucking retard this entire arc. I don't even know.
Idiot the entire arc, bro.
He suggests to Goku that fusion wouldn't work, but then later on thinks that he can take down Moro 7-3 by nuking himself. So I don't know. I guess Piccolo over Gogeta and Vegeta Blue. Laugh out loud again. And
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, I think Jocko was. I think nobody mentions Jocko, and Jocko is probably one of the more enjoyable characters because I feel like he often represents the reader sometimes. So he'll ask Goku and company questions like, "Why are you saying this? Why don't you just do that?" And I could relate to Jocko. And then there's Maris, who was obviously a supporting cast. He was never, even though there is intent for him to kind of be, that guy to defeat more, but that was never really the case. And I think he was probably one of the more favorable supporting casts that have been introduced into Dragon Ball Super by far. And that's pretty much it. The Dakai was great. I think Majin Buu's perception was very well too. He was handled pretty well. Then he just
and
went to sleep and became useless. So I don't know. I mean,
and Oob
that.
as well.
And Oob, who's he's a strong boy. That guy's pretty powerful. And Oob, yeah, he was good. I mean, that was probably his official introduction into Dragon Ball Super as being relevant, but we'll see. I mean, but yeah, if I had to put it in order, Daikaio goes first or Majin Buu. I know you would probably think I would choose Oob, but Oob just came in last minute and it was just more like a plot point thing, and I don't really care. Who cares? Until he actually does something like with his own involvement. It's really difficult to put him as a supporting cast per se, but he definitely did support. Then I would say, then I guess Oob after that, and then maybe go on. But everybody else was just like, why? Who cares? So yeah.
This will be the last sort of topic, somewhat of a lightning round. We wrap it up here. To me, it's about the ending. To me, the best ending possible would have been they're fighting Moro, and then suddenly an X-wing shows up, and then Gohan says, "Oh, one X-wing, big deal." Never mind. I'm not going to say the rest of it because it might ruin it for people. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you'll find out hopefully
I
someday.
see what you did there.
Yeah. All right. So the best moment on television in years, bro. But anyways, all right. So the ending of the Moro arc. Okay. We talked a little bit about this. Just kind of wanted to ask y'all's thoughts on, Goku and those guys get medals and Mirrors comes back to life. Just basically the end of 66 and the beginning of 67. Like, did you like the way that they finished off Moro with the punch of the crystal? I'll be honest, there's some stupid shit here because why is Goku flying around and Moro's trying to catch him with his arms when he can teleport right in front of Moro, right in front of him and punch him? Like, I don't understand all this flying around shit like Superman. Like, that to me took me out of it. Honestly, it was a cool moment and I liked the drama behind it. And I like Goku turning gigantic, and I like, Vegeta using Force Spirit Fission like his own version of the Spirit Bomb, the Genki Dama, and then you have Oob donating his energy. He's got lots of potential, but like a certain Jedi said, potential without training is no good, or whatever the hell he said in that great moment in TV history. So, y'all's thoughts. I'm going to start this time with Emish about the ending, how they finished off Moro. Did you like it, and the aftermath of everything? Just your thoughts.
Yeah, so I enjoyed it mainly because it was something that a lot of us content creators and people in the fandom have been asking for, which is the involvement of everybody. Teamwork tends to be the best thing because when you utilize teamwork, you tend to require less of an explanation for why you chose to have a character do specific things, right? So everybody feels like everybody feels like even though they ain't shit, at least they're helping and they're providing something and they're doing something. And it gives off the impression that even though Goku has obtained Ultra Instinct and mastered it, that it's still not enough because at the end of the day, Goku is still Goku and he's still going to need Vegeta's help. He's still going to need the help of his friends and all this other stuff. So there is that concept there. And it was also handled in a way to where it made sense that MUI Goku couldn't finish him off because the beginning of that chapter, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it was not only like Vegeta and company that were being drained of their energy. Goku was too. He was also on the ground at the time of when he was dodging Moro's attacks. And we substantiates that by saying that, even though if Goku's dodging his attacks, his energy continues to swell unabated because, Moro was also passively draining people at the same time. And then at the end, Goku charges through Moro. And then he's like, making physical contact with Moro towards the end of it. And then he just gets caught and gets drained and then admits that he's losing power. So the ending was good mainly because you had a little bit of everything. And then that big thing with Oob, right? I had done a video a long time ago talking about whether or not, the god power within Oob or within Kid Buu had been revived with Oob. And then it turns out that was the case. So that ended up being a factor. And you had characters that you really didn't expect to be of a help, end up helping, and primarily Oob especially. And that triggered the conversation about the end of Z. So typically it was good because it gave the fandom something to talk about and to theorize and to speculate on. And whenever you do that, I think your product is successful when you do something like that. So as far as like 7-3 still being alive, that's weird, but I guess I understand. And then I don't know, Moro was just fell apart after chapter 61, but then the final chapter, it was fine. So I don't have any issues with it.
Okay. Opa, what do you think about the ending of the arc?
How the hell is Moro dead and 7-3 survived somehow? Makes no sense to me.
Right?
It makes absolutely no sense to me. The ending, I like that they were creative, but at the same time,
maybe 7-3 is the real survivor and not Granola. You know what I mean?
Exactly, maybe. But here's the problem. This is not gonna change. And it's the way that Dragon Ball Super is handled as a manga is one of the few mangas that actually is on a monthly basis, and they have a smaller team of people working on it. Whereas if you look at some of the other big mangas, they are on a weekly basis. They have much more assistant writers and editors, people making sure that everything is consistent and that there aren't any loopholes or anything like that. This, on the other hand, we don't know exactly how many people are working on it, but it's very few. And that's why there's a lot of problems with the manga.
Basically, like 3.
Yeah, and look, they're good at what they do, but they're not necessarily experts at everything. So we're gonna continue to see these problems in the next saga. Even though Akira Toriyama is leading it, it's still gonna be a major issue that we are gonna see. I like the fact that they have this beautiful picture with everybody together. I thought that was a beautiful touch, but I didn't like the fact that I didn't like how Mears came back and it's like, oh, hey. And all of a sudden we switch over to a picture. It's like, okay, don't you want to have a conversation as to, wait a second. Can you explain to me like what happened? Like what's going on? There was none of that, right? We didn't have like an actual conversation reunion. It kind of just went straight to the picture and kind of left it at that. So I was mixed with the ending. I thought it was okay. I felt like it was a little bit rushed. When compared to the rest of the manga, the beginning of the first half of the manga or the saga was very well thought out, but towards the end, everything just fell apart and it just felt rushed and just things didn't make sense.
Well, yeah, it did feel a little bit rushed in the last chapter, but not so much 66. Alex, man, so what did you think about the ending now looking back and the whole arc, like as a whole, what we talked about, plus, do you give it a thumbs up? I mean, I'm going to give it a thumbs up, even though there were things that pissed me off. Overall, it was fine. But what do you think?
I mean, I what's up with all these enemies and their weaknesses being like some crystal? Aniraza, Kami Orin, like what's, Kami Orin, all these giant characters with these crystals. I don't know. It's just it's weird to me.
It's like a video game, bro.
Yeah, no, right? It is. It's like break the crystal to defeat the boss. It's just weird. Right. It's weird. I got Rise of Skywalker vibes, some Palpatine stuff, some cloning at the end. I was like, wait, 7-3's alive? How? It's baffling to me. But then again, people can make the same argument to say, oh well, the androids, right? When Cell spat them out and when that happened, but even then with Majin Buu, right? When he had everyone in his head with the pods, it's just really weird stuff. I really think that 7-3 should have been killed. That's just me. Whatever narrative they're gonna run with, it's fine. But I don't have a problem with the ending. I just felt as if you wanted to make Goku the victor and if you wanted him to be the one to kill Moro, that's fine. But I just felt as if Vegeta should have been the one to employ more than what we've seen, other than him just punching the floor. You did nothing. You provided nothing of value by doing that because you punched the floor and you got nowhere. You distracted Moro for like literally a few seconds to have Goku go in, but he still got caught. And then he got zapped out of his power. And then once you contributed your own power, you only got him to blue. So it was just weird. But seeing Oob play a huge role in this was really cool, only because he was heavily emphasized. Even during the Universe 6 arc, when they were trying to recruit people, I'm sure you guys remember, when Vegeta suggested, like, hey, what about that kid? What about the reincarnated version of Buu? And Goku's like, nah, I think he's a little kid. And then same thing during the TOP arc in the manga, when Dende had told Goku about this prodigy child. And Goku's like, really, where? And they're kind of building on that. And I think that's pretty cool. And to see how the Daikaiyoshin was like, hey, see you around, we're related. And Oob, arguably you could say he's never seen someone fly before or just vanish like that, because he was shocked when he saw that. So that was really nice. I think I agree with Opie with the whole slice of life moment, with everything feeling so wholesome, gathering together, taking a picture. Maris, the aspect of Maris should have been worked on in a way to where I would have had it. I would have had the narrative play off to where the GP calls in Beerus, Whis, everybody, including Goku. And sure, the punishment for Beerus and Whis and Shin could have been, hey, go play with Zeno. But I would have had it to where Goku would have been like, what can I do to make this up? Is it possible for me to bring him back? And I would have had Goku go on this journey to try to get the Super Dragon Balls to have like this sense of like adventure in a way like similar to the beginning of GT, when everyone was going off on these space adventures or whatever. So I would have had it to where Goku would venture out by himself without the assistance of Whis, since he, has a penalty for him for assisting Beerus here. I would have had it to where Goku's like, hey man, how can I make this up? I feel like it's my fault, and it is my fault because I swayed him into doing this, and it was because of that he strengthened his resolve after I kind of had this bond with him. So I would have had it to where they could have gone into a direction where you worked toward his resurrection, and then it would have added more value. But for the GP to just bring him back like that, I think it's a testament of how strong he is and how powerful he is as an entity. To just bring someone back that's just erased like that by his own accord. I think that the ending was suitable. Just overall, it was very nice, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do in the future. I have no faith in Toyo Taro writing a consistently good narrative. I feel like we're going to get to points where he's going to write something cool, and then he's either going to forget or someone's going to make some changes and he's going to flop again. I feel as though it's going to be back and forth, just like how this arc was. But by comparison to what we've seen only go down in the manga, this was very consistent. It flowed well. There were lots of bumps on the road, but I feel like, to me, in my opinion, this was, I think, the betterment of the Dragon Ball Super stories. And I think, to me, this was probably the best arc that I've seen from the manga. But I'm just going to wait and see what they're going to do going forward. Because if they can top this by writing a consistently inclusive story that's heavily emphasized on something being linear instead of just going into 50,000 directions, then I'm okay with that.
All right, last question for everyone. We're going to wrap it up now. I'm going to go around with everyone real quick. No need to go too deep into this at all. Just maybe a yes or a no, or why you think so. Was this the best arc of Dragon Ball Super? And what, everything. And was it, or your favorite so far? And was Moro the best villain? So, Opie, you go first.
Yes and yes. I think even though I did have my issues with it, right? I'm going to criticize. But at the same time, I'm going to acknowledge that, in my opinion, this was the most interesting villain that we have seen in a very long time. And overall, the arc just had so many dynamics to it that I think made it the best arc. The best arc. Also, so far, yeah. It to me, it felt like it was written for TV. Like the way the chapters were written, it was made for television. And that's one thing that was very different than the other sagas of the manga.
It's going to get adapted at some point. Okay, Alex, what do you think, man? Villain and arc best?
I like I said, I think this was the best arc only because you had the utilization of everybody. I think the best fight was probably, and this might throw people off, but it was probably Omen Goku versus Goat Moro, only because the fight itself was very back and forth. It was very intense, and I think for what it was very barbaric. So I really enjoyed that. I think the arc itself was very like, in terms of pacing, it was good. They took the time to tell the story, even though they could have ended it at several points in time. I enjoyed it for what it provided. It didn't rush anything, or it didn't allow something to just feel like it was forced, or at least super forced. Like certain plot points where I think were very convoluted, and I think Toyo Taro kind of like just stumbled around a little bit when it came down to that. But overall, I think that this was my favorite arc in the manga. In terms of villain prospects, he's up there. It's really hard to say. I think that maybe he's minus. I don't like 7-3. I don't like Moro 7-3. I just don't. I like Prime Moro better, so I would place him as being my favorite. Right around Frieza and Merge Zamasu, but I would say if I had to look at it minus Moro 7-3, then yeah. But overall, I just hope that going forward they introduce something similar, something different, because he was different, or at least for the time being, with his magic and the way he even spoke. I don't know if anybody paid attention to the way he spoke. He spoke very just different, and it felt refreshing, right. Almost as if he's holier than thou. Like it was really nice. So to me, best arc. Villain wise, minus Moro 7-3, probably my favorite villain, yes.
Amish, man, what do you think? Best arc, best villain, yes or no?
Yeah, so in terms of design, yes, but in terms of arc, villain, no. Which might come across as a shock. So I'll just summarize this really quick.
Who's your favorite then?
Merge Zamasu, in the manga especially. Yeah. So the design, the design for Moro is just obviously better. But if, when you talk about a favorite arc, right, you say, okay, well, what arc are we going to call that arc? How do we reference it? Okay, the Moro arc. Well, why do we call it the Moro arc? Well, because the main character there is Moro. He's the big opposition. He's the big
baddie.
It's
called the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc, technically.
And the prisoner is Moro, right? So ultimately, I was actually going to mention that. So even if you call it the Galactic Patrol Prisoner arc, the prisoner is still Moro.
Right.
And it centers around him, right? So now if you look back at the MZ arc, You say, okay, well, what makes an arc an arc? Okay, well, if the moral arc was enjoyable for me because of Marist, then it's not really that good of an arc because the main character there or the big baddie should be moral and he should have most of the influence, for the arc specifically, because it's his heart, it's his arcs, it's mainly his arc, right? And you look back at the MZ arc, I think MZ, he just felt unbeatable, especially when you had that MZ army. Now, granted, Goku and Vegeta weren't as strong as they were, now as they were back then. But even if Goku had MUI, MZ was immortal. You just couldn't physically beat him. You had to erase him completely. And theoretically, I mean, by now Goku should be able to use Akai. But Beerus in the manga is pretty specific when he says even he can't kill mortal. He can't kill someone who's immortal. So even if you got rid of his physical body, he would still exist similarly to how he did in the anime. He would become the universe and overtake it, so on and so forth. So MZ was probably the most unbeatable opponent. And I think his ideals as a villain were better than Moro. So Moro treated people like cattle, like a farm, like the universe was his personal farm.
Ironic.
Like a cattle farm. Yeah, right, exactly, because he's a goat. As to where MZ had more of an ideal thing going on, Zero Mortal's plan, he actually killed all the Kaioshin, thus killing the gods of destruction. I think he had more of an impact on the series, even though it was just more of a future timeline, so it wasn't the present timeline, but his existence had more of an impact in terms of, an actual threat, as opposed to Moro, who just treated the universe like his personal farm, right? So for me, the MZ arc, best villain is MZ because of his ideals, because he actually represented evil, even though he didn't view himself as evil, but people did. And that was also something that's mentioned, in interviews, like, when around the time that arc came through. So I liked it because it was different and it was fresh. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to close it out. I will leave links to all these gentlemen's channels in the description down below in case you don't know who they are, which I'm pretty sure most of you know. And of course, let us know in the comment section your thoughts on the Moro arc. Thanks for joining us on this crazy journey that was the Moro arc for the past 2 years. And thanks for joining us on this crazy journey that was 2020. We're not done yet. We got another week left, but still, I'm never gonna forget this year as long as I live, yo. This is one of those like years like Pearl Harbor, 9/11 level. Like, we're gonna be talking about this forever, yo. Grandkids are gonna be hearing about this one. Not anything to do with the Moro arc, but still, it was the arc that was around when it comes to Dragon Ball. So whatever. Anyways, I'm out. Thanks again. Have a great one, and I'll talk to you next time.